you can learn that there is maybe a better way to have this love for people that can produce a better result for all those around you and yourself. Anyone who's been empathetic to anyone else's challenges and struggles knows it's difficult to carry everyone's burdens, and you're also, of course, everyone's carrying their own. Examining some of that and understanding that it actually can look like love. It actually is love when we're showing up that way, giving and receiving feedback in love for the other person's growth is extremely powerful. And when you make authentic relationships where someone's willing to do that for you, it can be just life-changing.
Welcome to the Beyond High Performance podcast, featuring content and conversations from me, Jason Jaggard, along with our elite coaches at Novus Global, their high-performing clients, and the faculty of the Meta Performance Institute for Coaching. On this podcast, you'll hear some of the world's best executive coaches and high-performing leaders, artists, and athletes discuss how they continue to go beyond high performance in their lives and businesses.
Welcome to Your Finest Hour, a series of interviews going behind the scenes with world-class leaders, teams, and their coaches on how to make the most out of coaching and life. I'm your host, Joseph King Barkley, executive coach with Novus Global and president of the Meta Performance Institute. Today, I'm joined by Amanda Jaggard, partner at Novus Global, and her client, Jennifer Koster, Chief People Officer at Live Communities. Jennifer brings over 25 years of experience in operations and human resources across multifamily, student housing, and senior living industries. During our conversation, we'll hear how Jennifer was profoundly influenced by coaching partnerships, leading to a shift in leadership style. And she shares how coaching has sparked a personal transformation, teaching the power of curiosity, self-reflection, embracing and choosing energy and emotions, becoming a creator rather than a victim, and learning to give and receive feedback with empathy and impact. This approach has not only impacted her leadership, but has also contributed to a cohesive, empowered, and growth-focused environment at Live Communities. We hope you enjoy the show. Jennifer, we are so grateful that you're joining us today for the conversation. Our audience likely doesn't know you, so we'd love a little bit of autobiography. Give us some context of who you are, what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I'm Jennifer Koster. I'm currently the Chief People Officer at Live Communities, and I'm really passionate about all things people and culture, leadership development, coaching, and that's why it's been such a great 5-year partnership with my coach, Amanda. I'm very grateful for it, and I'm excited to be here and talk more about the coaching experience.
5 years. Now, I would imagine that, again, some of our listeners who not only don't know you, but may not be familiar with coaching partnerships, that might occur to them as a really long time. Take us back to the beginning of what has become a 5-year journey so far. What was going on? What prompted the exploration of coaching? Why did you select to partner with a coach like Amanda? Bring us back there.
I think 5 years ago, I was on this journey. I really was advocating to find a coach for myself. I knew I had things to work on in my own self, and that if I wanted to be the best leader I could be, if I wanted to have a culture of coaching at Live Communities, it needed to start with me. So I worked with our CEO at the time. We did our due diligence. So at Live Communities, our why is to help people live their best lives. We do that through developing and operating multifamily and build-to-rent and active adult communities. So our what is real estate a little bit. So we're pretty good at due diligence. And we decided to interview several coaches. We checked some references. And there was one coaching firm I liked. And I think I talked to our CEO about it. We checked the references. And one of the references said, I think they'd be great. They're like a B+. That'd be what we'd give them. And I remember telling Scott, our CEO at the time, I don't want to work with a B+. Like, I need help here, people. We need to get an A+++. We're going to be making progress. So we kind of paused. We continued in our diligence process. Scott got connected with Jason and got me connected with Amanda. And we decided, hey, Jen, why don't you test this out on behalf of yourself and for Live, and let's see how it goes, and maybe we can bring others along on the journey with us depending on how we think the outcomes are coming along.
What were some of the problems that you were facing or the gaps you were trying to close that even brought up the idea of let's get some coaches in here?
So I think for me personally, some of the gaps I was facing that I might not have I knew the language, I might not have used this language at the time, but I really think I was kind of brushing up to the edge of burnout. That's how I'd explain it.
Okay.
I'd worked in operations for years, sales, property management, operations training. I made the transition to human resources. I had worked in human resources for many, many years. And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, getting in my own way. What could I learn and develop about myself to not run into so many frustrations and to really find this joy in my career, in my professional life? And little did I know that that would also come with finding it in various aspects of my personal life as well.
Oh, so at first it was, and this may be helpful for someone listening. At first it was, hey, I've taken on some new leadership responsibilities. I already feel like I'm redlining right now, so you're on the edge of burnout. How could I get a whole lot of things done and restore more life and joy to the work itself? But what you got as a bonus is, and we'll probably get into this further in the conversation, but it sounds like some of the benefit it wasn't just felt at Live Communities, but was felt in your personal life as well.
Oh, 100%. And I'm very grateful to both Scott and Amanda for that, because one thing that Scott told us early on was that this coaching is for you as a whole person. Wow. And if the leader gets better, everyone wins, right? So if Jennifer gets better as a whole person, everyone wins. So there was nothing off the table from at least Liv's or Scott's perspective as to what could go on in my coaching conversations with Amanda. I could utilize it for my whole person. And that has been just so influential, and that's been so impactful. I think that's really important for people to understand. If you're working with a coach, it doesn't just right. Your life used to be work-life balance. Now they talk about life-work integration, and 10 years from now we'll be calling it something else. But it's all about being a whole person,
That's great. I know firsthand that Amanda is one of the best coaches and trainers in the world. She's coached me, she's trained me, and so many others. So, Jennifer, it says something about you, frankly, that she chose to partner with you 5 years ago. Amanda, I'd love to give you some space to talk about, if you could go back 5 years and remember, what was it about Jennifer and her vision and some of the gaps that she was facing that drew you to partner with her?
Partnering with Jennifer over the last 5 years, just to say it has been such an honor and joy. Jennifer, I am so, so proud of you. And when I think back to 5 years ago, one, I love the HR world and like learning and development people because they're a kindred spirit to me in a lot of ways. So there's some good connection there. But Jennifer, you were so good at getting stuff done. You were efficient. You had I don't remember what platform you all use for like the project management, like getting stuff done, your integrity, your commitments, like that was not the thing. It really was what was going on underneath the surface and how relationships were occurring to you, leadership was occurring to you, how you were occurring to you. So when you already were such a high performer of like, you got it done and people knew that you got it done. Like that wasn't the thing. The thing was, it was underneath of this joy and who you wanted to be as a person and the growth there. So like that's my jam. I love working with people there.
I do think it would be so helpful for our listeners to hear what it was like to go from what was director level responsibilities and like Amanda was celebrating and you reported, listen, operationally, I was high performing. I could get a lot of things done. And now you're sitting here as chief people officer, which just the title alone leads me to think that's a larger scale responsibility. There's greater complexity to that. How has the coaching partnership influenced your leadership style, even like your relationship to work, decision-making processes throughout the progression to get you from what was a director level leadership into how you're functioning as a leader today?
which was one of our coaching outcomes. Like that was one of the first, like I remember back to, like just to go back to the beginning, it was this like, I don't know, I think I'd like to be CPO. I don't know if I can do like not like you knew that you could do it, but like, am I like, can I have that? Anyway, that was one of our first, was like, yes, like, let's go for it. Let's do it.
Well, let's go there. Jennifer, what lit you up about the idea 5 years ago? Like, oh, maybe one day if I could get my Christmas wish, I'd be CPO. What was so appealing about that responsibility, that leadership for you?
I think it was the thought of the impact that you could make on other people. So, you know, at Live, our why is to help people live their best lives. And I always say, like, who can't get behind that? And we can all make an impact on that, no matter what position we're in. But it just aligned with my passion areas. And I just wanted to be fully engaged in my passion areas and honestly learn how to better empower others in operations so that I could lead and do things differently at a different level. And I think one of your first questions was, how did the coaching impact kind of going from the director level to the chief people officer? And there are several things that were coming to mind. So one was being able to identify a thrilling vision that is beyond what you thought possible. Because I think Amanda said, you knew you could do it. I did not. I did not know I could do it. I did not think it was possible. Yeah, really. Really. I did. It was totally like beyond what I thought was possible. So if I already thought it was possible, then, you know,
you would have done it.
I might not have needed to expand my vision, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it gets
That's
fun,
right.
is it's like,
That's
I
right.
really want it. I don't know how to do it. Like, ooh, now we're cooking with gas.
Absolutely. So that was one of the things is, you know, expanding the vision. And once you expand the vision, so let's say expand the vision to someday becoming the chief people officer. Okay, great. Something can be measured in the future. Don't know how I would possibly do it. But then you start seeing this, where else could I expand my vision? And then when you're expanding your vision, you start thinking, how could I do that for my team? What's their vision? How can I help them expand their vision? That's the part that gets really fun. And we can all kind of talk about what we're capable of together, right? So I'm learning this language of coaching, so I'm coming along with you. And then I think the other part that I wanted to mention from getting from the director level to the chief people officer was just a lot of aha moments personally along the way in the coaching. So by an aha moment, or some other people I might call it a scotoma, or it's kind of like these things that you just don't know are in your way, and how would you? And and that's why I think it's so powerful to have a coach, to be coached, to coach others, to be in that relationship, because you can't always see your own things. It helps to have that outside perspective. And I didn't realize, like, not on purpose, but I had a whole bunch of expectations and very little agreements. I remember that was one of the first aha moments I talked to Amanda about. She's like, if you could sum up, like, what was one of the first ones? It's like, oh, I have just a bunch of expectations and very few agreements, which leads to a lot of frustration, not just for me, right?
That's right.
So that was just one of those aha moments that, oh, well, there's like coaching tools for that. There's like ways to make agreements and invite people into ownership of their agreements and not have expectations that are either communicated that someone else didn't agree to or not communicated at all. And that was one of the first ones for me. There were many more, but that was one of the first ones.
I love my expectations. I love hanging on to my expectations. I like judging other people relative to my expectations. I like avoiding the vulnerability of making a request. I'd rather just sit with an expectation. Like, oh, it's just this nice, wonderful, deflating blanket. But it takes some courage. We have an aha moment of like, oh, I've got a lot of expectations. I could build this thing on agreements. It takes courage then to start acting on this new aha. I also imagine that going from director hands-on, much more operations, into leading leaders, getting a lot of stuff done through other people, there were other courageous choices that needed to be made, because changing a level of leadership isn't just changing a job description, it's changing a way of being that sacrifices the way things happened up until now. Give us some insights on a few other ways that you've experienced a transformation from how you were leading 5 years ago to how you get to lead now.
I think one of the things I'm most grateful for is the team that we had in place when I started my coaching, because it allowed for a lot of vulnerability and trust. I know I would actually say to people, if you would allow me to just practice something I'm learning in coaching right now, I would lead with it. And that, I guess that does take a little bit of courage, but it was also nice to be surrounded by people who were receptive to that, who were willing to walk the journey and then also wanted to then explore the coaching, almost like, this is interesting. Like and then when it came up for the ask of, would you be interested in coaching? I feel like we got a lot of yeses because they were seeing the vulnerability in leading with the coaching and how it was definitely making me more curious. And I think that that's a key, right? More curious and less judgments. And I don't think many people go out into the world thinking, today I'm going to judge a whole bunch of people. I don't think that people really, many have that intention. But unfortunately, it can happen. And when you start leading with more curiosity over judgment, that kind of shifts how things can occur to you. It shifts how you can lead. It shifts and allows others to be more empowered in their leadership. And I would say the other thing that really helped is what Amanda talked about at the beginning. She invited me into this exercise about limiting beliefs where, on my phone, I just wrote this entire list of all these limiting beliefs. And they really weren't that hard to come up with. And then once they are hard, you can sit in it, you can simmer with it, you can come up with some more over time. And then in that exercise, then she invited me to write the more empowered belief. Or sometimes she'd invite me into questions. If I'd come with a frustration, she might say, what would the most empowered Jennifer do in that moment? And I almost always had an immediate answer. So it wasn't as if I didn't know. I just had to be invited into the courage to be empowered, to create my own experiences, to reflect on my limiting beliefs. And those were some of the most powerful times for me. I can remember being frustrated. I can remember being super excited. I can remember crying, like all the emotions and everything in between that leads you to the place of some of that self-reflection. Now, when those limiting beliefs come up, because it's not like it's done, right? We're all continually growing and evolving. I kind of recognize it faster. I have tools for overcoming it faster, in my opinion. And I think the same thing has happened in my leadership. If there's a frustration or I have a noticing a lot faster about myself. It's almost like I'm the Amanda. I'm saying to myself, that's interesting, Jennifer, that you're feeling that way. And then I'm examining, did I have a lack of an agreement? Did I have an expectation? Am I not leading with curiosity? How am I complicit? All the things are going through my mind. And that's been really helpful. It's been extremely helpful for me as far as energy. So if I want to say this, I believe in all the emotions and none of the emotions are bad. But for me, sometimes the emotion would suck the energy. And I feel like I let myself authentically feel all the emotions because that's who we are as people. But for me, it just doesn't suck the energy nearly as much as it used to because I have some tools for self-reflection rather than being the victim in my drama triangle, I can be the creator. And what would that look like?
Amanda, I want to hear you give us a sketch of how you experienced Jennifer in her transformation, reinvention on her way of being over the course of the last few years.
As we're talking, there's so many, I can picture the coaching sessions and the conversation. And what's occurring to me right now is just how much of a journey it is. Like, we didn't get from there to where you are now it's not a snap of the finger thing. And so I'm thinking about, oh yeah, you had to learn like learned this lesson with this person in this conversation, which then led to the muscles to be able to learn this lesson or like to work through this growth. And then it led to this, that was this growth. And then, that led to being empowered to have this conversation with this person. And there was such a scaffolding of it. And so I think sometimes in coaching, we want to get, like, we see where somebody can be immediate, but there is such a journey that's involved. And so I remember one of our first conversations that sticks out to me most is you came in really caring a lot about other people's emotions and what they thought and what they felt, and like, oh, I don't want to hurt anyone. And I remember asking things like, how much longer do you want to be carrying so much about how other people are feeling and their experience? Like, yes to the owning your impact, but like you carrying the weight of theirs. And you were like, well, that's very important. I do. And I was like, okay. And it was like, because I knew that, oh no, you'll figure it. And so as things came up, it was, oh, I see where the cost is for me and for the other person. I'm not inviting them into their empowerment as I am stepping into mine. And what does it look like to create that? And as you did that, the transformation on your team, and it became much more, inviting other people into their empowerment than you carrying that for them. And so it was this cool synergy on your team as they became more empowered and you became more empowered. And then it led to all sorts of other leadership conversations. So I think that's the thing that's sticking out to me the most is the scaffolding of the journey and the growth, and we'll figure it out. Like it'll get there.
Well, now we get to stand on top of the scaffolding up until this point, and this is a new vantage point that you're getting to stand from. So I imagine there's been some tangible results of identifying some of the over-caring of other people's opinions and emotions and perspective into how you're getting to show up today. I just heard about you getting to speak at NYU, for instance. I'd love to hear some of what's life like for you now with, I don't imagine that voice of, hey, really care what other people think hasn't gone away completely. I'm sure it's still whispering in there. But you're seeing, okay, I can try on something else, and you're showing up differently, and it's creating some tangible results. So I'd love for you to speak, especially as an encouragement for people who right now are listening and feel fairly crippled by other people's perspectives and opinions. Give them a sign of what it looks like on the other side of this journey.
Absolutely. So I know that one thing that we looked at was kind of this concept of codependency or people pleasing, really wanting to always be there for people, which might be more like rescuing and not like coaching and inviting people into their own. And for me, I mean, it truly did just for me come from a heart of love for people. That's where it came from. And I think that you can learn that there is maybe a better way to have this love for people that can produce a better result for all those around you and yourself, because there's, anyone who's been empathetic to anyone else's challenges and struggles knows it's difficult to carry everyone's burdens. And you're also, of course, everyone's carrying their own. So I think examining some of that and understanding that it actually can look like love. It actually is love when we're showing up that way. And that's one of the things we talk about too at Live that we've learned from Novus about giving and receiving feedback in love for the other person's growth is extremely powerful. And when you make partnerships, authentic relationships where someone's willing to do that for you, it can be just life-changing. I actually, when I was actively seeking out feedback from peers at Live, 2 of them told me almost identical feedback, and I'm 100% certain they weren't chatting about it. So it's probably real, right? And it was something like, you are so good at advocating for other people, but we don't really see you ever advocating for yourself. And, there's that defensive first reaction that kind of comes up, like, I'm no pushover. I advocate for myself. But then there's the when you can kind of sink into it and be like, oh, I wonder where that shows up. Like, if that's true or partially true, how could that serve me? How could I take that feedback and grow from it? And I think just, you mentioned speaking at NYU. So through this journey is some of the really cool things that have happened. I guess if you want to call them cool things that have happened with Jennifer, is most importantly, I just love leading at Live. I like all of the partnerships there. I love what we're trying to do to impact our team and our residents to live their best lives. That's, if I'm showing up even 5% better than I was before, then that's awesome. That's amazing. And then some of the other things that have come out of this is I was able to apply and interview and join Chief, which is one of the nation's leading female executive networking groups. That was definitely in the bucket of something I never would have even thought I could apply for. I would have definitely been thinking that's for people at Fortune 500 companies, and that's not something I could add or receive any value to. And now with the coaching, I'm like, hey, why not? You know, if I'm not accepted or I'm not doing it, then there's another path, and I'll do something else. And through becoming a member at Chief, I met a couple professors at NYU. I've now guest spoken at 2 different master's level leadership classes there, which I'm really enjoying because I get to share about vision, mission, values, leadership. So that's been really great. I'm speaking at a local college tomorrow in person and talking about leadership for a leadership capstone minor class. So that's going to be really fun. And I joined a multifamily mentor match group and decided to speak at that group on something very personal that I've never talked about before with my hidden disability of HEDS. And Amanda might remember when I first started coaching, I also got a diagnosis during the journey. So that was part of the uncertainty. But during the coaching, I think she asked me once, and have you ever talked to your leader or any of your peers about this and how it might be impacting your work? And I was just like, no, why would I do that? So I went from that place to advocating, speaking about it publicly, giving a talk on leading beyond limits, resilience through the lens of a hidden disability, meeting other people with HEDS, hopefully impacting others with hidden disabilities or challenges to encourage them. And I did feel like I was going to throw up before speaking, for sure, but I did it anyway. And that's the whole get comfortable being uncomfortable where the growth occurs. And I remember thinking, if this benefits even one person, it'll be worth it. And I remember something super impactful that Amanda said to me. I don't know if she remembers, but I've shared this with so many people, Amanda. She said, and if it only benefited you, that would be okay. And that would have never occurred to me. And that was really powerful. And I actually do think I probably benefited the most. Not that that's what the goal was, but it was definitely one of the outcomes. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the coaching and partnership along the way. I think Amanda offers an excellent balance of definitely being there for you and cheering you on and reflecting back to you so many things that are going well and advocating for you. But then there's this really tough part in Amanda's coaching, and that's necessary, I think, tough love, I guess you could call it, to really have the transformation, because we can all have people in our life that are for us and cheering us on, but it goes way beyond that. For me, the partnership with Amanda and how she was able to really balance the tough parts with the encouragement.
And so much love for you in that. It wasn't advocacy. Like when I think back to before you had talked to Scott about your disability, and you were carrying so much and it was impacting you, and like I'll get emotional about it. And like you were like, there was such a suffering. And I think thinking that this is what, like this, almost like this is what leadership is carrying this and staying quiet and just doing the thing, and to invite you into a space of honesty and openness, which was, as I think about it now, connecting back to a value that you had. Like your value was being honest and open with your people. And so I think coming alongside and like even lovingly inviting you to notice that misalignment. It's like you value the open, but and look at where possibly, and to empower yourself to be honest and to make those requests. And I knew the courage that it took in order for you to do that. And so that's like the celebrating piece, right? And the holding. And so sometimes in coaching, people say like you pushed or you made me. Is like I did it, but it's like inviting, like what if, what could happen, and what could that open up for you and who you could be and your leadership. And I remember when like you taking the risk to have the conversation, or it felt like a risk, and just Scott's graciousness even in his leadership and understanding. And it was just empowering, I think, for everyone. But it opened up the door for then you to not be like already you were carrying so much. So to not carry the weight of that, it was just really beautiful. But yeah, any tough conversation was to advocate for you and your good and love for you. To empower yourself to create the life that it was that you wanted, that was possible, that maybe even you weren't seeing that it was possible. So it was just like, what if you could get the accommodations, and like this could be, and you could make the requests, and then you could, and you would feel better. And like what if? It's like, oh my gosh, what if? And so then you move forward in it.
Understandably, you've become a bit of an evangelist of this work in your company and in your network, Jennifer. I do want to say before I ask you this next question that's on my mind, that what Scott said initially was true, that as the leader gets better, people benefit, that as you have advocated for yourself, you are in fact advocating for others. So you yourself, your transformation is a gift by itself. And you have also advocated for more of this work to be available to other people in your company and in your network. So speak more to how you have, let me say that again without my dog barking. Speak more to how you have brought this opportunity to your company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in life, when we've had something so transformational in a positive way, you just really want to share it with as many people as possible because you know it can be so impactful. So I think through the journey of the coaching, more and more leaders at Live started getting coaching, and then we offered it to even more team members at Live, which was wonderful. And then back to that original, what if we could have a culture of coaching? What would that take? How would we get there? What would that look like? There was myself and 4 others at Live that had just experienced this transformational impact of coaching with Novus Global. And we decided that, yeah, let's be all in. Let's go to the Novus Global Meta Performance Management Training Program, lift the weights, do the hard work, all the things that were involved with that, and then start an internal coaching program at Live. And that's the journey we're on now. So we have 5 certified MPMT coaches. They had coachees while they were getting certified, and we've launched an internal coaching program at Live. We've been through the first round, and we've started the second round now. And now we're planning for who else that qualifies might sit for MPMT next year, because a good problem I have right now is I don't have enough coaches for all the coachees on the waiting list. So we actually have a waiting list of internal team members that want to be coached by certified Live coaches. And it is my goal now, my thrilling vision, that the waiting list is going to be eradicated sooner rather than later so that we can keep offering the coaching to everyone that's all in for having it.
First, Jennifer, I want to acknowledge you. The reason that there was so much buy-in within the company is because they saw the transformation in you first. And it was like seeing that change for you was like, oh, I want that. I want that for myself. And that led to Scott and then the other leaders. And so you really modeled, I think, the like the openness towards coaching, the value for coaching, which then created that buy-in from the rest of the organization.
Amanda, maybe for our listeners who aren't familiar with our meta performance management training, I'd like the source, since you're the originator of the program, to speak to the difference between a leader or a team hiring a coach or a team of coaches, and what a company might be facing or a gap they're trying to close that would make MPMT actually a solution worth considering. What are the differences between hiring a coach and bringing MPMT into your team?
So MPMT is one of my favorite things that we do around here. So people can hire individual coaches, and there's so much to that one-on-one space with someone who is like outside the organization, who can ask those questions. But when leaders really want to lead from a coaching paradigm, I love is the synergy within the relationships within the organization. So people are looking to their leaders for that relationship. There is more of a connection than just, a 45-minute conversation 3 times a month. There's oftentimes like a very significant personal investment in what that person then is moving on to create. The other thing I love about MPMT is, like, it's one thing to be a client and a recipient of that coach, but we learn so much more when we're actually either teaching something or doing it ourselves. And so the leadership development that leaders go through MPMT, I think the reason I love it so much is because it is such an intimate and growing space where you are getting feedback. You are really getting into the work in ways that you don't get into when you are just being coached. It takes it to a whole other level of understanding and really doing the work within yourself first, which I imagine is so incredible just for leadership in general. And then you bring that to these people, the people who you are working with and teaming with. And it just seems like this cohesiveness of language. And again, it just takes doing the work to a whole other level than just what the coaching does. Jennifer, is that your experience? That's my experience on this side of things. What is your experience of it?
I would say absolutely. So I think it's really important to receive coaching first. I mean, you have to experience the work and the transformation in yourself first. Not that it's ever done, but to make some progress on it. And then to get into having the opportunity through MPMT to learn how to be a coach and be coaching others. Now you're lifting the weights in a new way, right? So the routine is kind of being upgraded. And the benefit it's 10x from there.
I didn't even think about that quality of it. Amanda and I train coaches. We do this all the time through the Meta Performance Institute. And I hadn't really reflected until this moment how learning how a tool works and how to better implement a tool also gave me a more profound connection with the tool itself. So because I have a coach, we all have coaches, as now I am being coached, that it does in fact open up a very different, vibrant, disruptive, frankly, relationship with the tool, because I have a deeper respect for how this thing actually works. Maybe a deeper trust in how it works. I didn't even think about that benefit. So as leaders in different organizations, maybe they're considering something like this. Hey, I would love to lead with some of the meta performance tools in my toolbox. It will also enhance your experience of coaching. Because you'll have a deeper understanding of how the tool transforms lives.
Yeah, I think so. And also I think you can identify it a little quicker when you've experienced it in a different way. Identify situations where it might be helpful.
Yeah, there is it is going behind the curtain, and it's like, oh, that's why you're asking that question, and that's what's all underneath. And so when we ask the question, I think from MPMT, how are you complicit? That's like an old hat question. You get where that's coming from. It's not coming from a place of shame or judgment. And it's like, oh yeah. And we just jump right in. It is. And Joseph, I love how you use the word disruptive. It is disruptive in a new and different way, because the person with MPMT, you're thinking about doing it for yourself. You're also thinking about then doing it with the person, like holding the tool, like working with the tool with the person who you are coaching. So there's that dynamic. And then there's also coaching that person and how they are using the tool with the people who they are leading. So it is this multi-dimensional way of looking at the tool instead of, like, when you are being coached, you might be thinking about using it for like other people, but there really is, it's this multi-staged approach.
Yeah, I'm even thinking about, I wasn't even planning on going here, but this, maybe Jennifer, you could speak to this. Often we will get inquiries from leaders and from teams. Hey, how could we solve this problem? How could we close this gap? How would we create this result? And they may start with listening to some podcasts or maybe reading our book, reading some of the articles. And okay, great. Now I know the tool. Now I know the steps to giving and receiving great feedback. And there is a massive difference between having a tool and creating a culture. There's a big difference between certain ownership tools or integrity tools and having a culture of ownership, radical ownership, a culture of radical, loving feedback. Jennifer, maybe you could speak on how the culture of Live has continued to be transformed as you have incorporated meta performance ideas, methodologies, coaching into your leadership and into the team.
Absolutely. There's so many things that are coming to mind about that. One is definitely I also want to say there's just a difference between having a tool and utilizing it through practice and coaching and feedback. So that would be step one. I got plenty of tools in my
shed right now that are gathering dust, not doing me any good.
That would be step one. It was really funny during MPMT, there's some tools for how to coach other people, and you're there to learn them. But coaching isn't about walking through tools. And so when you're kind of a newbie, I'll just speak for myself, although I know others in my MPMT said the same thing. I was almost a little bit too focused on the tool, like what's the next step? And then it's hard to be present in the moment and really lean in, listen. There were so many times when I was being coached by Amanda where she might ask a question. I didn't have an immediate answer, or I had an immediate answer, and then she'd ask me to dig deeper. And I would just be like, I don't know. And she would say things like, it's okay, we can wait. Like, we can sit here, we can wait. So I think knowing the tools, the questions is different than utilizing them in lifetime with others and getting feedback. So that's just one thing I wanted to say about MPMT. But how has it affected the culture at Live as we're on this journey and continue to be? So it definitely affects the language. So we all have this common language now, or we're getting to the point where more and more of us have this common language. Certainly those of us who've been through coaching and attended MPMT, we have this common language. We're learning how to better and better use the tools. So we're using them in our relationship, and that's showing up as collaborating faster, getting there faster, not having as much friction. For instance, just this week, I was thinking, I didn't receive something from someone that I thought I might have by now in a meeting last week. And then I realized we had no agreement about when I would receive it. So I just shot that person an email and said, hey, it's occurring to me that we didn't have a clear agreement at all about when this might be done. Is there a time frame that you're willing to, agree to get this back to me, or whatever the next step was? And I know this person knows the language, and right away, oh, you're absolutely right. I could have also set a better agreement. This is what I'm thinking. And it sounds maybe a little trivial, but we got that friction out of the way and got to an answer so quick. And I make up with no emotion, no judgment, no blame, no shame, no trouble, no problem. And now we're all on the same page. So that's like a micro example. And if that's happening all across the organization, you can only start to imagine how much quicker you can get there, and cheering each other on, not limiting what we think ourselves and others are possible, inviting people into, oh, that's a complaint. I love a complaint. because that's a latent vision. So what is your vision around that complaint? And those conversations start happening. The other thing that has been happening is, of course, more people wanting to be coached either by our Novus partners or from our Live coaches. And then they're getting the language and lifting the weights and seeing the difference it can make. So that's growing exponentially. And then I've also seen it enter our leadership training. So we have leadership training that's for all Live leaders, but then we opened it up to what we called leadership deep dives. That's open up to the whole company, where we deep dive into some other aspect of leaderships, because we're all leading, whether or not we have direct reports. We can all benefit from it. And we're having interim presenters, and not only are the presenters using this language of coaching and this culture of coaching, but the participants in the chat of the virtual training, or when they are on camera and asking, they're using it too. And so I think we just implemented the deep dives this year. We had 2, and I believe 50% of the company showed up for each one of those. I make up the other 50%. We're running the company, so I'm really grateful for that. So I think the second one we ended up recording so that we could show it to people who didn't attend, and I'm sure we're going to look at expanding that vision now for next year, since we tested it out. We got the feedback, the data as far as what did people think of it, but also who was showing up and finding it valuable and utilizing that language of coaching throughout. And now we're going to try to increase that vision and see what we can do next there as well. So because we're all spread out at all different locations geographically, I can't see with my own eyes every day how it's being utilized, but I see this undercurrent of it all the time. And it makes me excited of what's happening at all the different locations that I don't even know about. And I think that's where we'll see if this culture of coaching continues to evolve, is the impact it's making at all of our locations for each person, and that we're closing these gaps and collaborating faster and seeing what we're capable of to serve each other and our residents more than we ever have before.
I love so much of what you said, but I was particularly struck by your celebration of the micro adjustments, because we've noticed so often when we begin working with a leader or a team, organization, that they are looking for some large, grandiose overhaul of systems, and they think that will be the answer. And yet they are trying to run a marathon on a sprained ankle. They're trying to race the Tour de France with flat tires. And they at first might resist, well, why are we focusing on such small things like commitments we're making on by when we're going to send emails? And so often we get twice as much done in half the time with increased joy and satisfaction when we identify the regular routine, what might occur as, quote, micro ways that we are slowing ourselves down and expending so much energy. And so it is those, again, it might occur to us as small. It might be those more routine, habitual areas that actually create the biggest results. So I love that you highlighted that, Jennifer. Jennifer, this conversation has been incredible. There's so much to celebrate in your journey up to this point. But I would not be a meta performance coach if I wasn't curious a little bit about what is the next point on the horizon. Is there some vision that you have articulated, committed to, or it's beginning to materialize as the next point on your journey?
I think absolutely we want to increase the number of coaches. And if we could get coaching to 100% of Live team members, that would be the thrilling vision that is a little bit outside the intuitive fence right now with the number of coaches we have and those that are on the waiting list and interested. And I think one thing that speaks volumes to that is all of the first round Live coachees said, yes, I'd be interested in doing MPMT next year. So I think that speaks to the power of coaching, not only within Live, but for our personal lives and how we want to grow and develop so that we are really living out our why to have our team members and our residents live their best lives. And then others, you just want to share that. You don't have to limit it to those that are within your organization. I'm coaching with women at Chief, and we're sharing these concepts in podcasts. And we're here about, it occurs to me that Novus's vision and Liv's is very similar. I mean, you're about transforming lives for the better. And I have a complete testament to that and gratitude to my partnership with Amanda. And now I get to see it expand to so many more people. So that's what's next for coaching, for sure. There's lots of other things too, from personal and professional development, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Jennifer, I just want to acknowledge you again for your openness and your hunger for growth, and the life that I have seen you just grab hold of. It's an interesting thing as a coach, especially when you journey with somebody for so long. Like, you inspire me. Your vision and dreaming big and going after it, and it invites me even to greater levels of my own growth and development and imagining what could be possible. And so now I think we've gotten to there's like a synergistic relationship where we are both encouraging and advocating for each other. And so that partnership, like seeing what's been happening at Live, is incredible. And then getting a front row seat to you being fully who you were designed to be in the world has been absolutely an honor and a joy. So thank you so much for allowing me the privilege of that.
Do you receive it, Jennifer?
Absolutely. I receive it. Heartfelt.
That's right.
Jennifer, thank you so much for the time that you've invested in the lives of leaders that you'll never meet today. Those who are listening who may have been looking for some sign of hope because they are on the brink of burnout, or maybe they are suffering invisibly, maybe even with chronic illness, and wondering if there's some resource available to them, or maybe they look at their team and know that there's so much more that is possible for them, but they're not sure where to start. So I think you have given some first steps to people who may need it. This is right on time for them. Thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right, we have a few more things to let you know about before we go. First, podcast reviews really help us serve more people. So if this podcast is helpful for you, we'd love your help to get it into as many leaders' hands as possible. Please leave us a review, even if it's not 5 stars. And if you really want to go the extra mile, let us know what you'd like to hear more of, or what you think we could do better to serve you and the people you care about. Okay, second, we have more resources for you online, and they're all free. We have free assessments, educational videos, articles from sources like Fast Company, written by our coaches and clients, all designed to help you use our tools in your everyday life and leadership. To dive into the free treasure trove of goodies we have for you, go to novus.global and then click on resources. Some of you have been listening for a while, and you haven't yet taken that next step to hire a coach. This is your time. I can't tell you how often I've heard from clients around the world that they wish they would have talked to us sooner. If you have a sense that you're capable of more, we would be thrilled to explore what coaching could do for you and those you influence. Simply email us at begin@novus.global or click the link in the show notes. You also might be listening to this thinking, maybe you want to be a coach, or maybe you already are and you have a vision to build a 6 or 7 figure practice coaching people you love in a way that brings life to you and your clients. Well, that's why we created the Meta Performance Institute for Coaching. It is an in-depth coaching apprenticeship designed to help you create the coaching practice of your dreams. The first step in exploring that is simple. Just go to www.mp, as in Meta Performance, .institute. There we have free assessments to help you see what kind of training you need to create the coaching practice the way our coaches do at Novus Global. Finally, this show is produced by Rainbow Creative with Matthew Jones as executive producer, Steven Selnick as producer, and Rob Johnson as audio editor and engineer. We love working with this team. Find out more about how to create a podcast for you and your business at rainbowcreative.co. Thank you so much for listening. We love making these for you. And remember, dare to go beyond high performance.